Martin Luther King Jr.'s life was shaped by the injustices he experienced from a very young age. Growing up in the deeply segregated American South, he was confronted early on with the cruel reality of racism. One of his earliest memories was when his white childhood friend was no longer allowed to play with him because of their differing skin colors. Later, he was made to wait outside a shoe store, despite there being empty seats inside, simply because he was black. Then, once again, he faced humiliation when he was denied a seat at the front of a bus, which was reserved for white passengers. These painful moments left a permanent mark on his heart and mind. Rather than allowing these experiences to breed hatred, they fueled within him a desire for justice, a desire that would one day grow into a nationwide movement. This journey took a defining turn in December 1955, when Rosa Parks, a black woman in Montgomery, Alabama, refused to give up her bus seat to a white man and was subsequently arrested. Her quiet defiance became a symbol of resistance. The black community, tired of humiliation, chose to respond with unity and determination. Martin Luther King Jr., a young pastor with a powerful voice and a calm demeanor, emerged as a natural leader. He called on the black population of Montgomery to boycott the city's buses. What followed was a remarkable display of collective resilience. For over a year, people walked to work, school, and church, choosing dignity over convenience. The protest faced threats, intimidation, and arrests. King himself was jailed, but their resolve never wavered. Eventually, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled segregation on public buses unconstitutional, and the Montgomery bus boycott ended in victory. This peaceful protest became a blueprint for the civil rights movement that would follow. Drawing inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi's principles of nonviolence, King co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, in 1957. Through this organization, he led campaigns to end segregation, fight poverty, and achieve racial equality across the United States. The mission was clear: justice through peace. That same year, King addressed a massive crowd near the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., urging the U.S. government to grant full civil rights to African Americans. While President Eisenhower largely ignored these demands, the movement continued to gain momentum. As the movement grew, peaceful sit-ins by black students at segregated lunch counters began spreading across the South. These protests, while non-violent, were met with fierce opposition from both the public and law enforcement. King lent his voice and presence to these protests, joining in solidarity. His activism led to repeated arrests. On one occasion, he was shackled in chains and transported hundreds of miles away to a remote prison. But help came from an unexpected source. During the 1960 presidential election campaign, John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert took notice. Robert Kennedy, a lawyer, intervened to secure King's release. The African American community recognized this gesture, and their support played a key role in Kennedy's electoral victory. Birmingham, Alabama, became the next major battleground. Known for its deep-rooted racism, the city's police commissioner, Bull Connor, had a reputation for brutality. When King led protests there, police responded with batons, fire hoses, and attack dogs, even targeting children. King was again jailed, and during his time in solitary confinement, he penned his famous letter from Birmingham jail. Writing on scraps of newspaper and toilet paper, he defended the moral obligation to resist unjust laws and called on fellow clergymen to understand the urgency of change. The letter became a foundational text of the civil rights movement, expressing both the pain and the hope of a people denied their basic rights. In August 1963, King led the historic March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Over 250,000 people of all races gathered at the Lincoln Memorial. There, King delivered the speech that would immortalize his legacy, "I Have a Dream." In that powerful address, he spoke of a future where all children, regardless of race, would be judged not by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. The speech resonated across the nation and the world, marking a peak in the movement. Tragically, just a few months later, President Kennedy was assassinated. However, the seeds of progress he had planted were not in vain. His successor, President Lyndon B. Johnson, pushed forward the Civil Rights Act of 1964. On July 2, the landmark legislation was signed into law, banning discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. King was present at the signing ceremony, standing beside Johnson as history was made. Later that year, in recognition of his peaceful struggle and unmatched courage, King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Instead of keeping the prize money, he donated it to support civil rights causes. But King's mission was far from over. He turned his focus to another area of injustice: voting rights. In Selma, Alabama, despite their citizenship, Black Americans were denied the right to vote through discriminatory practices. King led marches from Selma to Montgomery, demanding change. One of the marches, known as Bloody Sunday, saw peaceful protesters viciously attacked by state troopers. The brutality shocked the nation. In response, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law on August 6, 1965, removing barriers that had prevented black citizens from voting. With major legal victories achieved, King shifted his attention to the North, where racism took more subtle but equally devastating forms. In Chicago, he protested against housing discrimination and economic inequality. Though he and his followers were met with violence, including physical attacks, he remained committed to peaceful resistance. He chose to live in a rundown apartment in a poor black neighborhood with his family to experience the daily struggles of the people he fought for. He personally helped repair the apartment, showing his commitment was not symbolic, it was deeply personal. King also took a bold stance against the Vietnam War, aligning with figures like Muhammad Ali. He saw the war as a distraction from domestic issues like poverty and racial inequality. In 1968, King called on Congress to invest $30 billion to combat poverty, demanding economic justice for all Americans, regardless of race. That same year, sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee, went on strike to protest unsafe conditions and unfair treatment. Their slogan was simple yet powerful: "I am a man." King joined their cause, considering their fight as part of the larger battle for human dignity. Despite threats to his life, he continued his activism with determination. On April 4, 1968, while standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated by a single gunshot. His sudden death shook the world. Riots broke out in over 100 cities across the United States. More than 40 people lost their lives in the unrest. In response, the U.S. government declared a national day of mourning on April 7. King's killer, James Earl Ray, was later captured in London and sentenced to 99 years in prison. Martin Luther King Jr. was laid to rest in Atlanta, Georgia, near his childhood home. That very home, now preserved as part of the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historical Park, serves as a tribute to the boy who dared to dream, and the man who inspired millions to believe in that dream. His fight against racism, injustice, and inequality continues to echo through the halls of history. He was not only a civil rights leader, he was a symbol of peaceful resistance, a voice of conscience, and a beacon of hope. His legacy reminds the world that change is possible, that love is stronger than hate, and that a dream, even in the face of darkness, can light the way forward.